You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back. Yay. We're both like slightly under the weather.
I'm just tired. Because, Critter had his 1-year-old vaccines earlier this week.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, every time we go to the doctor, there's vaccines.
Okay.
And one of them, they said it could be like 5 to 7 days. There could be, a fever, potentially a rash. And sure enough, Thursday night, he started running a fever. And it was, 100 to 101 pretty much all day on Friday. So he stayed home. Even though I was like, you're not sick. He's barely running at half speed.
Yeah.
And so we spent most of Friday and Saturday like in and out of a Tylenol or ibuprofen haze trying to fight that fever. And I think it was, I can't remember if it was Friday or I think it was Friday night. His fever got to like 103 and it was like on one of the thermometers. The other thermometer read 102 and I'm like, okay, normally 102 is like call or go to the doctor.
Yeah.
But he didn't have any other symptoms. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is vaccine reaction here. Because one of the vaccines he had was a live virus. Okay. So it's his poor little body trying to fight it. But we spent all day today fever-free.
Yay.
No Tylenol. So
Yay.
Good to go.
Well, mine's just allergies. I developed them as an adult. Never had them as a child or teenager. Or in my 20s. Just one of those fun things. So, I have a bunch of announcements, so I'm going to jump into them.
Just roll through them. I'm going to try not to interrupt.
Okay, well, the first one is a great one. And I'm actually going to have you maybe look this up on your phone, because I didn't tell you about this. So, one of our listeners named Sarah sent us this link and told us about these really cool plushies. Okay. They're called Plushie Dreadfuls. And they're by a company called Mysterious. And so it's mysterious.americanmcgee.com. These things are fucking amazing. And I really want one. Okay. So this is a quote from the website to describe what the Plushie Dreadfuls are. Because they sell a bunch of other stuff on this website too. So the Plushie Dreadfuls are a line of broken, stitched, weird, and scary plush toys. I know that's the one I want. Okay, I'll tell you in a second. From a design team led by American McGee and guided by our audience via crowd design. And they're themed in 3 different themes. You can either get a Zodiac themed, mental health themed, or pride themed. And the one Katy just showed me is the one that I want, which is the anxiety bunny. And, it's a bunny, right?
Yeah, anxiety rabbit.
And he's got little white bunnies. And there's like instructions that come with him. And it's like, whisper your anxieties to the little bunnies at his feet. And then you like put them inside of him so that you don't worry about them. It's so sweet. I'm going to read, just because I feel like this is 1,000% just on board with us and what we believe in. So I went to their like FAQ, and this is just what they said about why they made this line. And also when they say that it's guided by our audience via crowd design, they literally take like suggestions from people about how they want the plushies to look. So they'll take suggestions from people who have like these specific mental disorders, or people like from the LGBTQ community about how they want the designs to look.
They have an ADHD bat.
They're so cute.
Look at all of his beads.
Oh my gosh. Wait, beads?
You were watching Arrested Development.
So this is what they said about why they created this line. Our plushies are meant to be tools and guides that help people in their experience with issues contained in their themes. I, American McGee, which is like the creator of the website, Believe in facing your fears and using the difficulties in your life as catalysts for positive transformation and personal growth. Instead of running away from the things we fear, we should run towards them and embrace them. Instead of hiding our issues and stigmatizing them, we should drag them into the light and expose them for all to see. In this way, we rob them of their power to control us. And then he talks a little bit about his experiences with like childhood trauma and mental health and stuff. I just love so much that there's a company out there that's doing this. They also make monthly donations to Against All Odds Rabbit Rescue.
Aww.
You know. And they also make annual donations to the Trevor Project, which is a hotline that provides 24/7 crisis support to services to LGBTQ youth.
I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah. So it's a really good company and website, and if you want a little plushie to express your unique mental illness or your zodiac sign, which everyone has, I understand not everyone is struggling with their mental health, or if you're want to support the LGBTQ community, they're truly just delightful. They're a little expensive, but worth it.
I mean, it looks
I think.
like it's not, Walmart.
Yeah. And he says
like
that
you're paying more for.
I mean, it's like quality. It's one of a kind designs.
Are they all made in America and everything?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Anyways, but thank you, Sarah, for pointing that out to me. As soon as I didn't realize we had a message from her, and so I read it, and as soon as I had finished stumbling through the rabbit hole, get it, of the website, I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, this site is amazing, and I want to buy several of these. Ideally, I would need the anxiety and the depression plushies, but I'm going to put the anxiety one on my birthday wish list, probably.
Nice.
That and a robot vacuum, I think. My second announcement is just a shout out to my old college roommate, not my roommate. I'm sorry, we didn't live together. Classmate. My brain doesn't work today. Her name is Renee, and she commented on one of our anniversary posts that she's listened to every one of our episodes. And I was like,
I haven't even listened to every one of our
episodes. I have listened to like 5% of our episodes because I don't like to listen to them after they've been made.
I've listened to more than 5%.
But yeah, it just made me happy because I don't think that people who know me listen. I just assume all of our listeners are strangers. Also, I did kind of stalk your Facebook, Renee. This is just to you specifically, because I think I've been calling you by the wrong name. And I think I gave her a shout out previously, and I called her by the wrong name because on her Facebook, she has 2 names, and I called her by the middle name, which is the name that I remembered. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Also, I hope you're doing well. Third announcement is our episode rating is rated R. I'm sorry, everyone. So sorry. So, Dante and David and Tiny Tim. I don't know, Tim, about your teenagers. I guess they can listen, but proceed with caution. Definitely young listeners, leave the room. Turn it off. You can't. This is a lot.
This ain't for you, kids.
This is one of those topics that I was too far into the research when I hit some of the stuff, and I was like, oh, crap. So, and on that note, I'm going to give some content warnings. I'm also going to ask Mom and Dad, please don't listen to this episode. I got to say a lot of stuff. I don't want to have to say it in front of you guys. So the first thing is I have to talk about erectile dysfunction quite a bit and about ejaculating. And
I love that that's the content warning.
Well, that's just the first one. I promise there's worse ones. Because I did want to take the opportunity to just say up front, because that will be a big part of like the first part of this. I don't want people to think that we are stigmatizing people that have ED, because it's not anything that anyone should be ashamed of or embarrassed about.
No.
It's just a medical condition. Some people have it, some people don't.
It's just like mental health. Some people have issues, some people don't.
Yes.
Also, if this is going to be a story about a particular person who has these struggles that ends up doing bad things, then absolutely we'll probably make fun of them. Yeah. But again, just if I end up making jokes about this person or making fun of this person, it's because they're a bad person.
Yes. And they blame a lot of their stuff on the ED and
not okay.
Not okay. And they, which I know I'm kind of getting into a lot without telling you the whole story. There's also a lot about like relationships not working. I don't know if it needs to be said, but like you can have perfectly healthy sexual relationships with ED. So anyways, I just want to put it out there because it came up a lot. Also, people still call it impotence, which I think is an outdated term that we should not be using. So just going to put that out there. Other content warning, sexual abuse of children and graphic violence. I'm so sorry. Okay. Oh, also, this is a two-parter. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'll bring the wine next time.
It's fine. But you also need snacks. No, that's my fault. I didn't get a chance to really eat before I left. So.
Oh, I had a lovely salad that was so beautiful that I made that I took a picture and posted to my personal Instagram. It was really pretty. I staged it to look pretty and then I fucked it up and
devoured it.
Yeah. But like also I have to cut my salads really well. I don't like when they're brought to me beautiful. They have to be cut into bite-sized pieces. Okay. Today I'm going to tell you about the Butcher of Rostov.
All right.
Okay. And you do have a dossier. Sweet. And you can look at it because the first picture is of Andrei Chikatilo. Sorry. Andrei Chikatilo. So he was born October 16th of 1936 in the village of Yabluchne. Sorry, I practiced these, I promise. Yabluchne, which is in the northeastern part of Soviet-controlled Ukraine.
He's got a nice jaw.
He does have a nice jaw. I don't have any pictures of him when he's a child because it was 1936 and he grew up in poverty. So at the time, Ukraine was in the middle of a famine due to Stalin's agricultural collectivization. And here is your fun history bite of the episode. And by fun, I mean not fun. Between 1928 and 1940, Stalin imposed this great policy called agricultural collectivization that was aimed at creating collectively controlled and state-controlled farms. And he did this by replacing privately owned farms, aka by taking over privately owned farms. And in theory, this was supposed to increase food supply to the urban populations, increase raw materials for processing, increase agricultural exports. In reality, all it did was create poverty and famine.
Yep.
And it literally just took away people's rights to farm their own land.
It's one of those things that, it sounds good on paper, but when it's actually put into practice, it doesn't work.
Right.
And honestly, I don't know all the details about it, because I'm sure there's much more than the brief synopsis you gave, but it didn't sound that good on paper to begin with.
Yeah. Saying we're going to take all of your farms doesn't sound great. Well, both of Andrei's parents were unpaid farm laborers for a collective farm. And instead of getting paid in money, they were paid in the rights to farm a small piece of land behind their home. How generous.
So they were paid in the right to provide food for themselves after working all day providing food for others.
Yes.
Theoretically.
Yes. On their own land. They're They're like, well, as payment for working all day, you can now go work some more and then keep some of it. Oh, also, their home was a one-room shack. So I want you to now picture the beginning of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
So Charlie Bucket's house.
Mm-hmm.
So the three of them, Andrei and his mom and dad, lived together in this one-room house, and they all slept in one bed. So Charlie Bucket family style.
Got it.
Also, like Charlie's family, pre-Willy Wonka intervention, they rarely had enough to eat. According to Andrei, he didn't eat bread until he was 12. And often they had to eat leaves and grass to sustain themselves, which, no thank you. In 1939, when the Soviet Union entered World War II, Andrei's father was drafted and sent to combat, which left Andrei and his mother to fend for themselves.
At least maybe he was able to get some full meals now.
Right, which you're like, okay, fewer mouths to feed.
Yep.
Except I forgot to mention that Andrei's mom kind of sucked. She was not a nice lady. She wasn't a great mother. She used to tell Andrei, okay, and I heard the explanation for this that I heard in another podcast was that this was supposed to instill in Andrei a sense of, like, survivalism, but you judge for yourself.
I haven't even heard what it is, and I'm assuming it's just instilled trauma instead.
So she used to tell her young son that before he was born, she had another son named Stepan, but neighbors had come and kidnapped Stepan and eaten him because they were hungry. Which, by the way...
Which sounds believable. I mean, if he's sitting there over a dinner of grass, like, yeah, I'd probably kidnap and eat somebody, too.
Yeah. By the way, did you know there's a story like that in the Bible? In, like, the Old Testament? This is so random. My mom told this to me last time I was up there. She was, like, she's doing some read through the Bible thing. Mm-hmm. And she's telling me the story about, like, these ladies that, like, made some agreement. Is that Connor?
Yeah, hold on.
Tell him we're not going to shotgun a beer.
We're only shotgunning a beer if you deliver the beer.
Connor just call?
Oh my gosh.
That's weird. That's weird. Who picked up, Katy?
I told him that if we were going to shotgun the beer, he had to bring the beer.
Oh, and he did. This is provided by Connor.
Oh my gosh.
He's not here.
He's not here.
What?
Is he?
Yeah, he's here.
No, he's not.
He was just on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
No, he's got to be here.
I'm not shotgunning a beer. You can shotgun it.
All right.
Oh, open that door and do it
you
outside,
gotta do it
please.
outside. You're not getting
What?
beer everywhere in here.
Yeah, I just cleaned in here.
Do I have to, like, poke the bottom and all that shit?
That's how you shotgun
That's
a
how you
beer.
shotgun a beer, Jarek.
Can I just chug it?
No! Read the
I
rules!
don't know how to shotgun.
Here, take my key.
Uh-huh.
You know what? Screw this.
Are you doing it? Oh, get it on video.
Katy has not eaten, Jarek.
I've got I've got drumsticks for you, Katy.
I haven't done that in years.
Did you hear me? Connor said,
Try both of them. Wait, hold on.
I'm blue.
Oh, yeah. Video proof of shotgun.
Here you are.
I want to see it explode in my face.
Okay, you want to see it? I don't know if it'll, can't play video. It's sending to Connor.
Oh,
These are really great mouth sounds. I'm glad Jarek's going to have to listen to these later.
Actually, no, that's a great chicken. That's the one that won the chicken wing eating contest, even though they're drumsticks. Yeah. Would you like one too, hon?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I have that delicious salad.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'll show you a picture of my salad. Look at that.
Very pretty.
Thank you. I made the chicken too, which is impressive because I'm really bad at making chicken.
Yeah, there's beer in my ear.
Oh, man.
I want video, or I want approval before that gets posted.
Gotcha. Well,
I've actually won shotgun races.
have you?
Mm-hmm. I remember in college, I used to go to live band karaoke.
Uh-huh.
And my friend and I were, through her, we were friends with the band. So after, when the bars would close at 2, our job was leaving going to pick up beer before the gas stations closed and stopped selling.
Mm-hmm.
While the band packed up, then we went over to their house and sat on the porch and, you know, continued playing guitar, singing songs, and hanging out and drinking beer. And every now and then we would have shotgun races.
Nice.
And I have won several.
Nice.
Suck it, boys.
I was just thinking about that rule earlier today, too. I was like, yeah, ballsy of him to put it up there and then not ever act on it. All right, so the story about the possible older brother who was cannibalized. So, like I said, it's unclear why his mom told him this story. It's also unclear if there really was an older brother or if this was just a completely made-up story.
Sounds more of like a made-up thing to scare him into, you know, trick him into being good. Kind of like a Santa Claus.
Yeah, or Krampus.
Yep, or any of the other gremlins. You know, we talked about some goblins, right? That were, you know, they were specifically invented, I guess, as a way of keeping children in line.
Yeah. So, another thing about Andrei, and I don't want to say one of the reasons that his mom might have been the way she was, but probably something that didn't help, was that Andrei was a chronic bedwetter. And if you remember, I said they all slept in the same bed. So being a bedwetter is, like, not great anyways, but when there's only one bed and you share it with your entire family, it's really not great. So his mother did not handle this really well. She would often beat him as punishment for wetting the bed, and allegedly he wasn't able to control this problem until he was 12. So, not great.
Could also have been a sign of a UTI.
Yeah.
Which is uncommon for boys and men, but they do happen.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book the other day, and one of the characters actually confessed to having problems with wetting the bed when he was younger.
Oh.
And he's like, yeah. And then turns out it was a UTI. We got that cleared up, and everything was fine.
Oh.
I was like, well, that's an interesting story.
I wonder if it could have anything to do with, like, malnutrition.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Doctor listeners, nurse listeners, please let us know.
Let us know. I know, I've asked my mom and my sister too many medical questions this week. I can't. About myself, I can't ask them unrelated ones now. In 1941, Ukraine was invaded by Germany. And so Andrei was, like, between 5 and 7 during the German occupation of Ukraine. So he was 5 when it started, 7 when it ended. And so during the occupation, he witnessed several graphic acts of war, including dismembered bodies in the streets. And he remembers feeling, quote, a mixture of fear and excitement at the sight of the violence. So just...
That makes sense. You know, obviously the fear, but the excitement being... I mean, excitement doesn't always have a positive connotation.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm excited to go to the theme park, but, you know, you can also be anxious and excited.
Yeah.
Like, or easily excitable or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, we as a society have always loved, you know, action and gore and whatnot. Like, think back to the days of the Colosseum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was fighting to the death. Like,
yeah.
This pretty gruesome stuff. We've always kind of enjoyed that. Look at all of our action movies today.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold that one against him.
Yeah. Well, and
I have a feeling I've got other things I can hold against him.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of this is just to kind of illustrate, like, he had a pretty traumatic childhood. Like, he experienced a lot of trauma that was not his fault. That was just, like, the environment he was in. He just, like, trauma was put in front of him. Mm-hmm. Speaking of trauma, in 1943, Andrei's mother gave birth to a daughter named Tatiana.
I guess his dad came home from the war for a weekend or something?
No.
Okay.
He didn't. So her pregnancy it wasn't, like, confirmed, but it's, like, almost certainly the product of rape by a German soldier.
Delightful.
And because they lived in a one-room shack, Andrei almost certainly witnessed that happening. Just more horrific things that this child is seeing. And he was 7 when there's a 7-year age difference between him and Tatiana. The following year, Andrei is able to start school, and he does well academically, despite having poor vision and not being able to see the board.
Actually, having poor vision might have served him well.
I know, good
Not
grief.
having to, like, really see in crystal clarity all the horrible things.
He was a target for bullies because he was physically weak, aka
Because
malnourished.
He was starving.
I know. But he's also very timid and very insecure. So he has, like, this one book is describing it as, like, a personality disorder. But I'm like, traumatic childhood, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah. You're a scientist, though. So as he gets older, he discovers that he has erectile dysfunction. And apparently he goes through puberty kind of late, similar to Issei Sagawa, our other fun person.
He can only get it up under less than ideal situations.
But if you remember, when he was going through puberty, it, like, scared him because he didn't know what was happening. So Andrei kind of, I think, had the same thing going on, which his father was, like, back by this point. But I kind of got the sense of, like, he didn't really know what was going on. And especially if it's not really happening the way that it's supposed to happen, or the way that it, like, happens with everyone else, then you really don't know what's going on. And it would probably be kind of scary.
Yeah, no, if you've had this thing for years and all of a sudden it starts doing stuff, with a mind of its own.
Yeah.
Then I do imagine that would be startling.
Yeah, a little bit.
So glad that when my son gets older, I've got a husband to be like, you're in charge of that.
Yeah.
Like, so, I'm doing all of the things. But when potty training comes along, that's when I get to be like, it is all you, boo. And then puberty, too. Leaving that up to...
I mean, you're saying that, but Chilton works a lot.
Yeah, I know. But also, I'm totally going to make targets, like, basically I'm going to have Shelton introduce the idea of potty training, and then I'm going to kind of come in and be like, all right, well, we'll reinforce this. Here's a cool floating target. Try and hit it. I read that in a book, too.
Nice.
It was
I like
cute.
that idea. Okay. So doctors would later determine that Andrei's ED was likely compounded by his already low self-esteem and likely, quote, personality disorder.
So it was all a mental block more so than any kind of physical issue.
I think they were just saying that, like, he's already got these self-esteem issues. He already, like, thinks very poorly of himself. He's already very shy. And then, like, he has, like, a penis that doesn't work the way that it's supposed to, which is, like, even more, like, embarrassing for him. And, like, trying to talk to girls and, like, trying to have, like, a sexual encounter, like, it's just like basically the worst situations. Like, if he could have been, like, a confident guy that had ED, that would have been one thing. But, like,
I feel like even that's hard to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, even if you are a very confident person, having that, I feel like that, I mean, I can't imagine what kind of a blow to someone's self-esteem that is.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, it doesn't make that person wrong or...
Yeah. Again, it's a normal thing. I actually listened to...
Treatments exist for it.
Yeah.
So, like...
And I listened to... I don't listen to it as much anymore, but there was a daily podcast that I listened to a lot. And one of the hosts would, like... When I... Towards the time that I had stopped listening, not because of this. That sounds horrible, but...
Unrelated.
Unrelated. Which I should probably start listening again. He had started to become, like, very open about the fact that he has ED, and he's, like, in his 30s, and he's got, like, a maybe fiance now. I don't know if they're engaged. Whatever, long time. I mean, like, he's in a healthy relationship, and
good.
But he was just like, it's a normal thing. People should talk about it. If you don't talk about it, then the people who have it are going to think that they're the only person that has it.
Yes. So we are old people in my house, and we always watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
Love that.
And I don't know what night of the week it is, but it's Chicago Med, I think. It's one of those TV dramas, the hospital drama. And it comes on after Jeopardy. And so if Shelton's not in the room to change the channel after Jeopardy, I'm sitting there reading or knitting, and I'm not getting up to change the channel. And this woman comes in, and she's like, here, you have to take my baby. Otherwise I'm going to hurt him.
Okay.
I'm like, why do you think you're going to hurt him? Basically, turns out she actually had Bell's palsy.
Oh.
And so all of, his little bit of crying because of the tinnitus, because of the palsy, was even more compounded and worse. She was also a single mother with no help, no maternity leave. So it was like a true commentary on the sad state of our postnatal care. On top of, one other comment was, she's like, I literally envisioned throwing him across the room or something, or throwing him at the wall or out the window, whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm really afraid of these intrusive thoughts. Or I'm afraid, I'm going to hurt him. And the doctor was like, that's called an intrusive thought. And it's actually pretty normal.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even sound like postpartum depression. Like, you don't have to have postpartum depression or anxiety just to have these intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And so they had some other woman who came in and talked to her and was like, oh, yeah, I remember when mine was a newborn. Man, at one point, I thought about, shaking him or throwing him out the window. Like, what would happen if I just did this?
Yeah.
And, she was like, wait, what? Wait, this is a normal thought that other mothers have? And she's like, yes.
Yeah.
Every single mother out there has had at least one very negative, scary, intrusive thought like this. So 100% for normalizing things.
Yes. Yep. Which is why we love to talk about our mental health.
I actually broke my phone because I threw it at the dresser.
Oh, that's fun.
Because Walker wouldn't stop screaming and Shelton wasn't helping the way I needed him to help. As in, it's nothing against Shelton. It was just, I was at my wit's end.
Yeah.
And, obviously I'm not going to throw the baby.
Yeah.
But I was just...
Glad you threw the phone instead of the baby.
I was more than at the end of my rope. Yeah. And I threw my phone and it broke.
That's embarrassing. But,
so is ED, but...
I know. Well,
it happens.
So is a lot. Good grief. I'm trying to make a habit of telling Jarek the embarrassing triggers for my anxiety, just so that I am because I'm like, God, I have to have one person in my life that I'm, completely honest with, that I can tell these things to. And I'm like, who do I trust the most in my life? I'm like, well,
your
gotta
husband.
be him. So... he knows all of my embarrassing stuff, which I feel like my stuff's more embarrassing than throwing a phone and breaking it.
You looked at me, you're like, well, no, that's embarrassing.
I'm just thinking if I had to go to, the phone store and be like, I need my phone fixed, and they were like, oh, what happened? I would make something happen instead of being like, I threw it because I was mad.
No, I would 100% be like, my infant, my 1-month-old child was, screaming for hours on end, and nothing I was doing was working, and my husband wasn't doing anything, and I just had it. I have a feeling that any female employee there would be like, oh, honey, I get it. Or any male person would be like, yeah, no, that, I haven't been there, can't imagine that. Or maybe if they were married with kids, they'd be like, oh yeah, I remember when my wife also threw things.
Yeah, fair. I've wanted to throw and break my wine glasses several times. And if not for the fact that I love these wine glasses and they're monogrammed, I might have. And for the fact that I'm scared of broken glass. But just to have something shatter. And just... But anyway.
I felt better for a good couple minutes. It broke my camera. My phone still worked. It's just... It broke the cameras. And I was like, well, that's a big part of me.
That's why you don't have any pictures of Walker between the ages of 1 month.
Exactly.
1 and 2 months.
All right. Okay. Enough of a tangent.
Sorry. So it was also suggested by doctors. This is just like all professional speculation about his life. It was suggested that since Andrei wasn't able to maintain an erection, since he experienced premature ejaculation, that he developed some confusion about like what caused arousal for him, if that makes sense. Because
I think I get what you're saying.
Because I'm not going to expand. So, for example, when we were talking about how the graphic violence that he witnessed as a child, he felt fear and excitement, and we were talking about how excitement can be different things. He may have interpreted the excitement. He was like, well, I felt something. I don't know. And that's, again, just people speculating. Okay, so when he's 17, he sees one of Tatiana's friends, who's 11.
I was about to say, there's a 7-year age gap.
Yeah. And he gets an overwhelming urge to overpower her. And I'm assuming that no one else is around. So he jumps on her and wrestles her to the ground. And it's unclear in this situation if he intended to harm her or sexually assault her, or if he just wanted to
have that power
over her. But he finds out that having this power over her
excites him.
And her struggling caused him to have an orgasm. And so this cements in his mind the link between overpowering someone and sexual satisfaction.
And now there is a safe, consensual place for that.
Yes, there is.
Not with an 11-year-old girl.
No.
But
yeah,
that is an acceptable kink with consenting adults.
Yeah, consenting adults, for sure. After he graduates, he has a few failed relationships with girls his own age. And unfortunately, they're all largely due to his inability to have sex with them, which I hate because, like I said, it sucks when that's your fear of, like, people, that's what women are gonna like that's what's gonna cause relationships to fail, because it shouldn't be. But
well, sex is a really important part of a relationship.
It is.
And if that doesn't work,
right,
it's really hard to make the relationship itself work.
And I would also say that with this specific kind of disorder, you probably just have to have the right kind of partner.
Yes. Again, you know, like that's there's a safe place for his kink, basically.
Yeah. And I don't think at this point that he really understood that he had, like, a disorder. He just understood that, like, he couldn't maintain an erection.
And this is in the 50s now we're talking, right? Because it was in the early 40s when he was 7. And so now he's 17 or older, so we're in the 50s. Yeah, no, it's probably not a widely studied issue. There's probably not a lot of treatment options. And also, it's probably even less talked about than it is studied and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. He applies for a scholarship to Moscow State, which he doesn't get, which is another blow to his self-confidence. So he decides to go to vocational school, and then he gets drafted into the Army. And this is, like, over several years. This is just a long part that, like, would take up too much time to get into detail.
Nothing juicy happens.
Nothing important. In 1961, Andrei relocates to Rostov-on-Don, which is a port city in southern Russia. And shortly after he moves there, Tatiana, who is now 18, finishes school and moves in with him because he's got an apartment. And 6 months after moving in with him, Tatiana gets married and moves in with her in-laws.
Cool. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I was a little worried there.
Yeah. And Tatiana, to be fair, like, when she lived with him, she said, like, there was nothing weird about him. He was just, like, shy around girls, and that was it. And, like, she cared a lot about him, and so she became determined that she was going to find a wife for him, which is so sweet. And so her and her new husband introduce him to a woman. And that woman is, and she was in the first picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Her name, I'm just going to say it the way I've been pronouncing it in my head. Feodosia. And I'm saying it like...
Where?
Right there.
Okay. You say so.
Feodosia Odnicheva. They meet in 1963, and they get married 2 weeks after they meet. And it's basically an arranged marriage, but she is very understanding about his ED. My understanding of her is that she's just a very sweet woman, and they kind of get creative about how she is going to get pregnant. And I will let you use your imagination on how they do that.
You shouldn't.
Okay.
Because my imagination.
Well, they successfully have 2 children that are biologically his. I mean, like, and they do it without going to a doctor. So,
do you know how it was how it happened?
Yes,
you just don't want to say it.
Yes, I do.
Is there a turkey baster involved?
No, her fingers are involved. Basically, he just ejaculates outside of her, and then she just uses her fingers and
paints it in there.
Shovels it in. But that worked twice. So in 1965, they had a daughter named Lyudmila, and then in 1969, they had a son named Yuri. And Andrei is a great father. Both his daughter and son look up to him.
And this, I just want to say, but I know that it's going to take a turn at some point.
Yeah.
But I want to say up till now, this is just proof that he experienced a lot of trauma when he was younger. Mm-hmm. He's got, an issue that is totally normal and acceptable and not at all his fault.
Yeah.
But it is something that does, it does cause a huge problem for a lot of his life and, hurts. And he's still able to marry someone, have children, and be considered a good father.
Yeah.
Like, you can experience trauma, you can have struggles, and you can still be a good person.
Yeah.
A good parent, good partner.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I know that something bad's gonna happen. I'm just saying that, like, you have the choice. Like, it can happen. Like, it's...
Yeah. And, like, up until now, I don't think, apart from that, like, weird incident with Tatiana's friend, I don't think he's done anything wrong. And
the way you tell it, too, is, like, that was just, he didn't actually sexually assault her.
No. That was
physically assaulted her by tackling her or overpowering her or whatever.
And he did ejaculate on her, which some would call sexual assault. I would.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if he had it out and everything, but, like, if it was...
Oh, yeah, well, yeah,
like,
I guess
if he
you're
was
right.
still contained and he was like, oh, that just happened.
I had to think about that. Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, no, you're right.
That's when you get into that gray area of...
Yeah.
Is it or isn't it? Because the intent isn't there. Anyway, not a lawyer. But, yeah, no. Like, you can have childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. You can have issues.
You can have weird kinks.
Anyone have weird kinks. But you can still be a good person. Yeah. It comes down to choice. Like...
Yes.
He eventually...
That is the thesis of this episode, Katy.
I know that eventually he's going to make some bad choices. Mm-hmm. And while, yes, I'm sure his childhood trauma and his other problems, his ED, are a factor that goes into his decision-making and whatever he does eventually, but they don't excuse.
Right.
They explain, they don't excuse. And up until he makes these bad choices, he made fine choices.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that.
I just,
Well, because I really wanted to, like, do this where the first part of this was kind of almost make you feel bad for him.
Yep.
And
This is a guy that had some struggles growing up. He's got some issues as an adult, but
yep.
got a wife. He's got kids. He's a good father.
Yep. And like, I agree. Every bad thing that he does is absolutely a choice that he makes, and we'll you'll see.
And again, I'm sure that his early life and struggles do play a role in that decision making.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they don't excuse it.
Yeah.
All right.
So he has got this beautiful little nuclear family. And that second picture was him with Yuri on his lap, I think, his little boy. And he's got like his extended family.
Is that his little girl there, I guess?
I don't know. They didn't say in the picture. There was another picture where she, I think, is smiling a little bit more, but
yeah, I think it's the hairstyle, and it's probably again because it's a black and white. The hairstyle with the collared shirt, is not
there.
Basically, her femininity is not easily broadcast through this photo.
I like that her name's Theodosia, though, because I kept thinking Theodosia, but with a lisp. Okay, so he's got his beautiful little family. So during this time, Andrei has gone back to school, and he has gotten his degree in Russian literature and philology. Do you know what philology is? I had to look it up.
I've heard of it, but I cannot tell you what it is.
It's like language. It's the study of language and oral and written historical sources.
Okay.
I don't know why they couldn't just say language. Whatever.
Because it's got to be an ology. It can't be languageology. That's just dumb. Philology.
Philology.
It rolls off the tongue.
I'm sure it sounds great in Russian. So he gets a degree, and then in 1970, he begins working as a teacher at a boarding school. And the thing is he kind of sucks at teaching.
Well, yeah, he's a shy person. You need to have, like, a confidence to stand up in front of a group of people. Like, I'm a confident person. I enjoy public speaking.
Yeah.
And I still get nervous when I have to give presentations to large groups. Like, that's just an innate thing. But I'm a bubbly, outgoing, I can have a conversation with a brick wall. So, no. I imagine he would struggle.
Yeah, and imagine, like, I don't know, middle school age kids. God, they're so mean.
I would love to be a teacher one day, but I want to teach high school. I could teach elementary. Don't stick me in a middle school.
Middle schoolers are mean.
Worst.
Oh, they're awful.
They smell, and they're mean. They're just brutal.
I'm glad we said that Tiny Tim couldn't listen to this episode.
Well, they're all, like, at various stages of going through puberty, and none of them wear deodorant.
It is also hit or miss. Like, some of them, I'm sure, are, like, the sweetest, kindest kids and have, like, hearts of gold, and some of them are just mean.
They're all gremlins at one point.
Yeah, I know. And some of them are having, like, have already found themselves, and then you're just like, why do you look that good when you're 11? And I was going through phase 1 of my awkward stage.
Go over to my friend's house, and the first thing they'd ask me to do was wash my feet. Because apparently it wasn't because they were dirty, it was because they were smelly. The rest of me didn't smell. I didn't need to wear deodorant. I probably still even don't. But my feet, all during puberty, stunk to high heaven. And I think it comes from my mom's side because my uncle also had really stinky feet.
That's so bad.
But yeah, no, that was my cross to bear. Was I come over, take off my shoes, Katie, go wash your feet.
Oh gosh.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Didn't have like a foot spray you could do in your shoes or something?
I would have odor eaters in there or put like the powder in my shoes. And no, I think it was just,
Your friends' parents would tell you this?
No, my friends.
Your friends would tell you to go wash your feet? That's so mean. Man.
Kim was very blunt.
Oh, okay. Well, when I was in middle school, I went through...
This was also early high school, too. I was a late bloomer.
So, I mean, same. I mean, not physically for me, but, like...
Definitely physically for me. Mentally and emotionally, I was early on. As an old soul, I was
socially, I was a late bloomer. I didn't bloom socially until college. But my middle school thing, every year of middle school, I was a different... Like, I would try to be preppy, tried very hard to be preppy, in 6th grade, didn't work for me. And then I gave up on that. 7th grade, I just went full tomboy. Such a bad look for me. And then in 8th grade, I was, like, punk goth, but, like, kind of, like, diet punk goth, because I was still, like, very Christian. So, it was just, like, me wearing, like, black shirts, and like I wore like 8 necklaces at a time, one of which was like a giant cross made out of like nails, and then I wore black eyeliner, but only on my bottom lids, and nothing else, no mascara. And I didn't put that on until I got to school because my mom didn't like me to wear it, and she wouldn't let me wear black nail polish because she thought that was satanic.
I wore a uniform.
Oh yeah, Catholic school.
Didn't have the opportunity to express my identities that way. No, socially, mentally, and emotionally, well ahead of my time. Probably, also losing my mom at the age of 10 also aged me up a whole lot.
Yeah.
But physically, I was like sophomore in high school, maybe a junior before I went through puberty.
Oh no.
I was a super late bloomer, and so was my mom, so I wasn't surprised about that, but it did get to the point that I was starting to worry that I was broken. And by the time it did hit, I was like, yeah, I'm on easy street. Like, I don't even care. Like,
oh man.
Everyone else around me has already gone through this, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Oh man. Well, whatever.
But yeah, stinky feet.
Whatever part of that Jarek chooses to keep is exactly why Andrei was bad at teaching. Is because kids are awful,
brutal.
And he was shy and timid, and that's not a good combination. Also, he was in an environment where he was like seeing teenagers like hooking up with each other, and he was like, well, that didn't happen for me. So like, he's like, man, these, teenage boys are like more sexually successful than I am, even as an adult with my wife
and children.
Plus he's like, daily being subjected to like ridicule. Like the kids would like literally just make fun of him. But he was too proud to go back to vocational work because now he had a degree. So he kept working as a teacher. By 1973, he is starting to make some choices. So he had begun lurking near the girls' bathrooms, hoping to see female students partially undressed. And in May, he took a group of students swimming at a local pond. And while in the water with them, so he took them swimming and then got in the water with them. While in the water, he sexually assaulted a 15-year-old student named Lyubov Kostina. He basically came up behind her and groped her. And she screamed and, like, struggled to get away from him. And again, that struggle caused him to have an orgasm. And again, in his mind, he's like, oop, that confirms it. The power struggle thing is, like, what gives me this sexual excitement.
Explore that in a healthy way within your marriage.
Well, and another thing is that
this woman already used alternative methods for
I know getting pregnant. Yeah. One of the things that
you would think she'd be open-minded to.
Yeah. So one of the things that they said is that I don't know if it was like, I don't know if he asked and she said no, or if it was like it was looked down upon and he was too embarrassed to ask, but for some reason
or maybe there was that bullshit, I respect her too much
Yeah.
to treat her like this.
for some reason he felt like this was not something that he could ask for of Feodosia. Like he couldn't ask for either role playing or any like he couldn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he sat down and had a conversation with her and was like, "Hey, listen."
Probably not.
Yeah. Which, like, again, that probably is a tough conversation to have, but probably an important one to
require
have.
a man to be open and vulnerable, and
Yeah, it's not something a lot of men are great with.
a lot of them don't excel at that.
Yeah.
I also don't excel at
Yeah,
being
it's
open and vulnerable, so, like, what can I say?
yeah, it's hard.
I'm talking about, like, things in general.
Yeah. No.
No, I
agree.
don't think anyone's good at being vulnerable, right?
No, we're not.
Okay, good. It's not just me. I'm okay being on a limb by myself with stinky feet.
Jarek has stinky feet. Sometimes
And it's not just a puberty thing, at least.
No,
My
no.
feet don't stink so bad anymore.
Sometimes I tell him to wash his feet and he doesn't do it.
Does he just stick it in your face instead?
No, he
like,
just goes, sorry. Sorry, they're stinky. So it's unclear if this incident in the pond was reported. But later that month, Andrei made another bad choice. He made a student named Tanya Gulsteva. I might have written these down wrong. He made Tanya stay after class to do some remedial work. A little unclear on the specifics, but I think he at least tried to sexually assault her somehow and possibly, like, beat her. And then he left the room and locked her inside. But Tanya's smart. She climbed out an open window and she went home and told her parents. And her parents complained to the school. And the school went to Andrei and they were like, you need to resign. Which is not what a school should do. They should fire you.
That's the school looking out for the school's reputation.
Yes.
That would, by firing him, that would be the school admitting that they had hired someone inappropriate for the position.
Yeah. And that would probably, like, there'd be, like, something more official on record.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically it's the school just not wanting, it's saving face. Also, can I just say how much I love that we keep saying he made bad choices?
Yeah.
I'm all for that. Instead of saying, like, he did this thing and then he did that thing. Like, no, he made a bad choice.
It's making a lot of bad choices.
Because everything is a choice.
Yes.
All right.
And this is also one, I don't know how much I want to say of this, but, like, we do talk a lot about, in previous episodes, we'll talk about, like, mental health issues that have played a part in crime. Mm-hmm. And I have a hard time saying, like, oh, he has this mental disorder and that played a part in it so much as he's making some bad choices that are building upon each other.
There are some people that are criminally insane that we've talked about. This person is not criminally insane. Mm-hmm. He knows right from wrong. He's definitely had a rough, hand dealt to him early on in life. And there also is, progression or degeneration or whatever too. Mm-hmm. Like, his mental health, this is probably a stressful situation for him.
Yeah.
Trying to teach, trying to do this job that he's clearly not well suited for. Mm-hmm. And it's probably, like, really digging in at all of his other insecurities. And so he's just put himself in a very stressful, bad situation, bad for his mental health. And instead of saying, you know what, this is not right for me, he tries to stick it through. It's even worse and more detrimental. So, like, his mental health is deteriorating. Mm-hmm. And I think that is contributing to him making these poor decisions.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's probably some sort of downward spiral of like, you start making bad decisions, and even though bad things happen, it's like a not really a catch-22, but like just a vicious cycle.
It's kind of like the pleasure he's getting out of it is outweighing the bad things that
yes, because there is some sort of a reward from coming from it. So like he's getting confused about the right and wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those, like, you know, he knows right from wrong. He's like, but can it really be that wrong if something so right happened?
Yeah.
So, again, not a psychologist, not a doctor.
Yeah. Okay, so the school allows him to quietly resign. They don't report the incident to the police. Like I said, I don't think the first incident in the pond was reported at all. But this allows Andrei to just get another teaching job, which he did. So he just found another school to teach at. It was revealed years later that also in 1973, Andrei had molested his 6-year-old niece named Marina. And she obviously had not told anyone because she was 6. And because her uncle said, don't tell anyone.
Poor Tatiana.
Marina.
No, I'm talking about his sister.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, poor Marina.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking about the sister who loves her big brother.
Yeah, I know.
I can't imagine the betrayal that she would feel.
I know. So in 1978, so 5 years later, with no known incidences, he lost his new teaching job due to layoffs and immediately got another position at a technical school in a town called Shakti. Which I think is how we're saying that, which is about 47 miles from Rostov, and he moved his family there. So while he's at this new school, he sneaks into a boys' dorm room.
This is new.
Yeah. And performed oral sex on the boy while he was sleeping. The boy, and the only name we have for him is V.I. Shervikov, woke up in the middle of this, quite alarmed, and Andrei ran off. And this incident was not reported, but rumors kind of got out about it. Mm-hmm. He also molests his niece again. So Marina is now 11. She gets molested again by her uncle. Also, Andrei tried to, I guess, rape Marina's mom.
So his sister.
His sister-in-law.
Oh, okay. So Marina is not his sister's daughter. It must be Theodosia's.
I think it's like Theodosia's brother's wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was his sister.
Yeah.
But I forgot that his wife might have siblings.
It's very confusing. So her name is Taija. And so Taija goes to Theodosia's mother, who's like the matriarch of the family, and tells her what happened. And I'm assuming that is like her mother-in-law also. Mm-hmm. But she said nothing was ever done about it. And she thinks that her mother-in-law didn't tell her husband or anyone. Like, and there was kind of this sense of like, no one really believed that Andrei would do anything like that. No one believed, like, even when she said...
I bet there was some sort of, like, oh, I can't tell anyone else because we can't let this get outside of the family. We have to keep up appearances that we're this perfect, happy family.
Yeah. Well, and even, like, the rumors, like...
It's like Keeping Up with the Joneses, except I guess in this case it would be the Joneskis.
I think I heard, like, people in the neighborhood might have heard rumors of like Andrei's, like the rumors going around the school about like his conduct, but it was like the women might have like kind of been talking about those rumors, but the men didn't believe it because they were like, no, Andrei's he's a
fine dude.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He wouldn't do something like that. Like,
why would we ever believe women about things?
Yeah, and it was just like he had this facade of, you know, a good husband, a good father. You know, he does his job, he provides for his family.
The white male strikes again.
And it's just, ugh. Also around this time, Andrei buys a one-room shack at 26 Mezhevoy Street in Shakhty. So just a rundown...
Trying to remember the good old days of his childhood.
Yeah. So it's in a poor neighborhood, and when we say rundown building, like it's like a piece of shit. And he tells people that he bought it so that he could fix it up for his dad to live in. But pretty quickly it becomes clear that that's not happening. His actual intended purpose, allegedly, and I guess maybe at first, was to bring sexual partners to this place and act out his fantasies. So we said that he wasn't comfortable or felt like he could not act these fantasies out with his wife. My understanding is that, like, maybe at first these were, like, consenting partners that he's getting, like sex workers who are coming in. Mm-hmm. And he's having these encounters with them where he's in control. And they're both male and female, because he's not really performing sex on them. Like, basically, he's not having to penetrate them because he can't. But he is doing things where he's able to dominate them, because that's what is kind of getting his rocks off. Mm-hmm. Neighbors noticed and heard unusual activity around the shack, but it was not the kind of neighborhood where you would call the police, so they didn't really do anything about it. And unfortunately, dominating adults was beginning to become not enough for Andrei. This is a quote from one of the books that I used as a source. It's called Red Ripper by Peter Conradi. In a sense, the women were too easy. They would do anything, yet at the same time never really let him have the feeling that he was in control. Which, yeah, that's called fucking consent. While little children, though, it was different. On December 22nd, 1978, Andrei got out of work around 5 o'clock and was leaving the store when he encountered 9-year-old Yelena Zagatinova. She is the second or third. Oh, sorry. Your second picture is what Andrei looks like around this time now.
Yeesh.
Yeah, not the best.
Looking a little haggard.
A little rough. Not the best. And then that's Yelena. A little washed out picture, but so she's 9. She was walking home. She had been at a friend's house and she had stayed too late playing with her, and so she was in a rush to get home, but she was also in a rush because she had to pee, and it was too cold out to like stop and pee outside because it's December. And so Andrei sees her and starts kind of walking with her and strikes up a conversation with her. And she says, "Oh, I'm in a hurry because I've got to use the bathroom." And he's like, "Oh, well, I live right around the corner and you could use mine." You know. So she agrees to go to his house. And once inside, he attacks her. And his plan had been just to rape her.
Oh, that's all?
I know. This is so awful. But during that process, some blood appeared because she is 9. And seeing blood had a different effect on him than just the act of having control over her. And he says that seeing the blood caused him to have an orgasm. And at that point, he decided that he wanted to do more than just dominate Yelena. And so he stabbed her to death. Which is like such a dramatic escalation.
Mm-hmm. Stabbing is violent and very messy.
Yeah.
And for just a little bit of blood to trigger that.
Yeah.
You're right. That is one heck of an escalation.
Yeah. granted, the book that I was reading, there's 2 books, and I don't remember which one went into, like, a bunch of detail. And it's kind of written narratively, but it went into a lot of detail about, like, oh, it was, like, this really intense feeling, and it was, like, the best, you know, sexual feeling he'd ever had, and
I don't care how euphoric it is, don't.
Yeah. And then, of course, later people are going to speculate that, like, he's using a knife, and the knife is, like, very phallic, you know, symbolic, and...
Yep. Didn't even think of that.
So, there's that. Anyways, so he has escalated to this horrific crime. He, like, afterwards has this realization of, like, oh, what have I done? I've just murdered this child. So he carries her body across the street to the Grushevka River, throws her body in, where it is quickly swept away, takes her bag that she had been carrying, and also throws it, he thinks, into the river, but actually overthrew it, and it ended up going onto the bank on the other side. I don't think he realized that because it was super dark, and he didn't try to go get it. Mm-hmm. And then he goes home. And when he goes home, Feodosia's not home. She's still out. So he just, like, cleans up and, like, pretends like he's been home the whole time. So Yelena's body was discovered 2 days later underneath a bridge. Police very quickly found her backpack on the riverbank where she had been put in the water. And they also found spots of blood in the snow close to the fence by Andrei's shack. A witness gave a description of a man that they had seen Yelena walking with on the night that she disappeared. And that description was basically Andrei. And they also talked to neighbors in the area who said that the light in the shack was on all night and that they thought that Andrei used the place as, quote, a squalid love nest.
See, this is a lot of information and detail, like very damning evidence going to the police, and you said there's a whole another part coming.
Yeah, and if you remember, the name of this is the Butcher of Rostov. And usually
people have to kill more than one person to get a butcher title. Are we doing one of those things where you tell the story of how he got caught while you left out all of his other activity? Or is this a The Cops Suck episode?
Oh, this is the Cops Suck episode. This is probably the worst The Cops Suck part that we've ever done.
Yeah, because, it sounds like with the evidence is being handed over on a silver platter to nail this guy to the wall.
Yeah. So police start investigating Andrei, and they're like, oh, this guy's got some reports from these schools that he worked at. There's these rumors at his current job. Mm-hmm. So they're like, all right, let's go talk to him. Let's talk to his wife. So they talk to Feodosia, and she's like, I'm pretty sure he was home all night. And they were like, oh, okay, never mind. So they were like, okay, never mind. Guess probably wasn't him. His wife thinks he was home all night. Literally did not check her out, like, didn't check that story. And
one time people listen to the woman and it doesn't pan out.
And I don't even know if she told them, like, I know he was home all night, like she was lying for him, or if she just said, I think he was home all night because
he was home when I got home.
Yeah, because she thought he was home. So instead, police turned their attention to a 25-year-old man named Alexander Kravchenko who lived nearby. The reason that they looked at Alexander was because he had previously been convicted of rape and murder, and he had served 6 years in prison. So he had been sentenced to 10. He was spared execution because he had been a minor when the crime had taken place, and he had just recently gotten out of prison. So they're like, oh, this convicted murderer lives nearby. So they basically, like, law and ordered him and, like, waited for him to commit a minor crime, like jaywalking. Caught him on, like, burglary. Mm-hmm. Hauled him in, searched his home, and found spots of blood on his wife's shirt. The blood type matched Yelena's blood type. It also matched his wife's blood type. And it's like 1978, so like all we have is blood type. Both friends, neighbors, and his wife provided an alibi for him on the night of the 22nd. They were like, he was with us. We were all out doing stuff. But police were already convinced that he was the killer, and they coerced a confession out of him. They also threatened his wife and their friends with perjury and accessories to murder until they also changed their stories. So Alexander...
So they threatened them with perjury until they committed perjury.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So he was tried for Lena's murder in 1979. And by this point, he had withdrawn his confession. He was like, nope, I was coerced into that. I did not do this. But he was found guilty. They sentenced him to 15 years of, like, hard labor, basically. However, Yelena's family put pressure on the prosecution to appeal the sentence, which was something that you could do in Soviet Russia. Like, prosecution could appeal the sentence.
So the family was like, we don't think he's the guy that killed our daughter?
No, the family said, we don't think he should get life. We think he should get executed.
Dude.
And so the prosecution appealed, and they were successful. And in 1983, Alexander Kravchenko was executed by firing squad for the murder of Yelena. I know. Meanwhile, it was not lost on Andrei how lucky he got in, like, avoiding... Because, like, police had questioned him. And he was like, oh, shit. Although he also now had figured out that, in his mind, the only way that he would be able to have an orgasm was by killing someone. By, like, stabbing them. And he would later tell police that because of this realization, he tried to control himself and his urges for the next few years. Which he did until 1981, when he was let go from his teaching position at the school, and he got a job as a supply clerk, which was a job that allowed him to travel around to different factories. He was basically able to work on his own time, set his own schedule, and with the traveling, it was expected that he was going to be gone for days and sometimes weeks at a time. So on September 3rd, 1981, 17-year-old Larissa Chikatilo. Okay, Larissa. You can look at, she's your next picture. Larissa was waiting at the bus stop outside of Rostov's public library when Andrei approached her, because he's traveling now on business. Larissa was described as an independent and worldly teenager who would not have been completely naive about Andrei's intentions when he invited her to go for a walk. He essentially, like, propositioned her, and she was like, yeah, okay, let's do this. So they
reminds me of his wife a little bit.
Yeah, she kind of has the same eyes.
Something about the mouth, too.
So they walk away together, like, presumably to have a sexual encounter. And Andrei claims, this is such a fucking cop-out, that something inside of him snapped. And, like, he says this, like, it's like he forgets that he can't, like, have normal sex. I'm like, you're like a 50-year-old man. Like, this has been your whole life. Like, remember it. Write it down on a card or something. Like, I don't know. So they're in a wooded area. It starts as, like, a consensual sexual encounter and then very quickly turns into a violent situation. To stop her from screaming, Andrei shoves mud down her throat and then begins to strangle her. And then he has an orgasm as she dies, which is different from the last time because he's not stabbing her. He's just strangling her.
Just strangling.
Yeah, I know. He doesn't have a knife with him. And so he bites off one of her nipples. And then he starts running around her body, waving her clothes around like he's celebrating. This is another quote from the Red Ripper. He was feeling drunk now with emotion, with the overpowering of avenging all the wrongs and injustices that he had suffered in his life. You just murdered a 17-year-old girl. And when he had calmed down, he tried to conceal the body with leaves and branches and hid her clothes in some undergrowth. And then he walked away. He would later say that he left that scene knowing that without a doubt he would kill again. And her body was discovered the following day. And then on June 12th of 1982, 13-year-old Lyuba Burok, which is your next picture, I'm so sorry, had gone to the village of Donskoy Postulok to get some groceries at the request of her mother. And Andrei was headed to another district in Rostov, but had to change buses at Donskoy.
She both does and doesn't look 13.
I know. She kind of looks like, who's that little girl that we did the story on? The Bell girl. That's going to sound horrible. The little murderer. The little girl that killed people. It's just because she has, like, the dark lips and the pale skin, I think.
Yeah.
And the dark hair. Maybe it's a younger picture. Okay, so Andrei has to change buses, and he decides that he's going to walk instead of get on another bus. And as he's walking, he sees Lyuba. She's walking home with her groceries. He begins walking with her, starts making conversation, and he waits until they get to a deserted part of the road, and he attacks her. Apparently, he tried to rape her, but he still has ED. Shocking. Keeps forgetting this. But he produced a knife because he is now prepared, because he now is out with the intention of murdering people. And stabbed her to death and achieved his sexual gratification. Afterwards, he covered up her body and put her clothes in a plastic bag that he tossed in the woods. Her body was found 2 weeks later. The medical examiner noted that she had 22 knife wounds to her head, neck, chest, and pelvis, and that several stabs had been made to her eyes. And some believe that this might have been because the killer, Andrei, believed in the superstition of optography, which we talked about in the Villisca Axe murders.
Yeah, because we referenced Wild Wild West.
Yeah. So it's the idea that the last thing you see before death is recorded on your retina, like a photograph. According to Wikipedia, it was a widespread belief in the late 19th and 20th centuries. And it was used in fiction, including books and films that Andrei very much could have encountered in, like, the late 60s and 70s. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe he saw a movie and was like,
That tracks.
yeah, just to be safe. I don't know. So more confident now, having killed 2 girls, and, like, no one is suspecting him now, right? Because, well, he's killed 3, but he was questioned about the first one. He's now killed 2, and no one has, like,
batted an eye at
looked
him.
his way. Because now he's, like, traveling, so he can kill them and, like, walk away. So Andrei is now, like, fully embraced his sadism. So he's, like, the choices that he's made are, like, now...
This is his identity now.
Yeah, this is now, like, we're full snowball effect. So by the end of 1982, he killed 6 more people. I know, I'm so sorry. So I'm just going to tell you the dates and their names. On July 25th, 14-year-old Lyuba Volobyova. On August 13th, 9-year-old Oleg Pozhidayev, which his genitals were cut off and taken. On August 16th, 16-year-old Olya Kuprina. On September 8th, 19-year-old...
No. Absolutely not. Change the date.
I can't change the date. I'm sorry.
What happened on my birthday?
19-year-old Ira Karabelnikova was killed.
Do you know what year this was?
It is 1982.
Okay. 82 is fine.
September 15th, 15-year-old Sergei Kuzmin. And then December 11th is your last picture. 10-year-old Olga Stalmachenok. So, of these 6, at least 4 had their eyes mutilated, which led police to conclude that they were dealing with a serial killer. Most of them were either sex workers or like drifters or like runaways. And so unfortunately a lot of them were not found for like months because they weren't reported missing. Olga was different because she was not like a runaway. And she was reported missing. Her uterus had been removed when they found her. I know. He's like getting progressively more violent. The last victim here of the year, 1982, Olga, she had been taken off of a bus by Andrei that they had both been on, but the bus had broken down and all the passengers had to wait for a different one to come get them. And a woman named Maria watched the two of them leave, and she remembered noting how Andrei was leading Olga by the hand, quote, as if he were her father or grandfather who had just told her off for something. And she just remembered that it was kind of strange. Maria was one of the last people to see Olga alive, and as fate would have it, Maria also had met Andrei before because he had taught her son at one of the schools he'd worked at. And she vaguely recognized him. She was like, I know him from somewhere. I just don't know where.
Right.
But police never talked to her. You know. Instead, they were busy forming a task force called Operation Forest Path. And
lame.
I know. It's a terrible name.
Jake Peralta would not be impressed.
And they decided also that it was best to keep all the news of the murders from the public in an effort to maintain the facade of a utopian republic that the Soviet Union demanded that they portray. And unfortunately, this only provided Andrei with the anonymity and protection that he craved, since no one was being told to watch out for a strange man luring women and children away from bus stops. That was another thing I didn't mention. He's picking up most of these people at like public transit. And unfortunately, this is like really only the tip of the iceberg in terms of his victim count. And that is why it is part 1. And I'm so sorry, but you got to come back next week for part 2. And I know you're super excited for that.
More murder and mayhem.
Yay. Anyways.
So if you want to see the pictures of these people and victims, you can check out our Facebook and Instagram at The Tales We Tell Podcast. If you want to see these things but don't do the social media, go to our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. That's where you can send us an email, or you can also email thetaleswetellpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag like our new Sasquatch logos or designs.
I think mine will be in by next week.
Nice. You can check out redbubble.com, search The Tales We Tell, and if you want to support us but you don't need the extra stuff, except maybe, I don't know, early access listening, commercial-free listening, some love notes, bonus content, there might be a video of me shotgunning a beer available, who knows. You can become patrons at patreon.com/thetaleswetell.
Yep. And thank you guys, as always, for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Oh, it's a Russian episode. We should be saying Dos
Svidaniya.